Ethan Cole had never imagined that a routine exploration mission could change his life forever. He was a pilot for the United Earth Space Exploration Agency, trained to handle emergencies and navigate uncharted territories. His ship, the Endeavor, was sleek and fast, designed to explore the outer edges of known space. The mission had seemed simple enough: chart new sectors of Andromeda and return with data. But as the ship drifted further from familiar star systems, a violent energy storm suddenly appeared on his sensors, unlike anything recorded before. The storm was alive in a way Ethan had never witnessed. Pulses of glowing blue and green electricity danced across the dark void of space. The ship shook violently as alarms blared, warning of critical system failures. He gripped the controls, heart racing, trying to maneuver the vessel away from the storm. Every instinct screamed to retreat, but the storm seemed to pull him in as if it had a mind of its own. The Endeavor's shields faltered under the immense pressure, sparks flying across the control panels. He pushed the engines to maximum, praying he could escape the storm's grasp. But just as he thought he had found a safe path, a massive surge of energy struck the ship directly, sending it spinning uncontrollably. Alarms screamed, lights flickered, and the ship's systems began shutting down one by one. The last thing he remembered before everything went dark was a blinding flash of light enveloping the cockpit. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was no longer in space. The Endeavor had crash-landed on a planet unlike any he had ever seen. The sky glowed with soft lavender hues, and the air shimmered with tiny floating particles that sparkled like stars. Towering trees with translucent leaves stretched into the sky, their branches weaving intricate patterns. Strange creatures moved among the foliage, their bodies glowing faintly in the dim light. The landscape was both beautiful and alien, a living world that seemed to pulse with energy. Ethan unstrapped himself from the cockpit and took in his surroundings. His body ached, but he was alive. The ship had suffered damage, but the hull remained mostly intact. As he began to survey the area, he noticed movement nearby. A group of beings emerged from the forest. They were humanoid in shape, but unlike anything he had ever seen. Their skin shimmered like silver in the soft light, and their eyes were deep, liquid blue, reflecting the colors of the planet around them. Among them was a figure who immediately drew his attention. She moved with a grace that seemed almost ethereal, her presence commanding yet gentle. Her silver hair flowed like liquid metal, and her eyes, larger than a human's, were filled with a mixture of curiosity and fear. She was clearly not a soldier or a guard, but someone of importance. Ethan felt a strange connection to her, though he could not explain why. "Stay where you are," one of the beings shouted in a language Ethan could not understand. The sound was sharp, melodic, and unfamiliar. The group advanced cautiously, as if they were trying not to provoke him. Ethan raised his hands slowly, hoping to show he meant no harm. "I'm human," he said, hoping they could understand the word. "I come in peace." Her eyes widened, and she took a small step closer, glancing at her companions nervously. "A human here?" she whispered, almost to herself. Ethan noticed tears glistening in her eyes, though he could not tell if they were fear, curiosity, or something else entirely. There was a vulnerability in her expression that made him pause. He had trained for survival, for danger, but never had he encountered a moment like this. An alien being, royal in appearance, afraid yet open, looking at him with something like hope. Before he could speak further, the patrol surrounding her stiffened. They raised strange weapons, their glowing tips aimed directly at him. Ethan realized that despite the princess's presence, they still saw him as a threat. Panic surged within him. He had to survive, but he also could not harm her. Acting quickly, he took a cautious step back, trying to signal his intentions. The princess's voice broke the tension, soft yet urgent. "Wait, don't, run!" Her words were a plea almost human in their simplicity. Ethan hesitated, torn between fear and instinct. He could feel the weight of her gaze, the silent question lingering between them. "Why are you running away from me, human?" Her tears fell slowly, catching the light in the alien sun, and Ethan's heart ached. He realized that she was not just curious. She was afraid of losing something she barely understood. The humans he had read about in history books had always been seen as unpredictable, dangerous. Perhaps she had heard similar warnings about humans, yet here she was, reaching out, showing trust in a way that transcended language and culture. Ethan took a deep breath and lowered his hands. "I'm not running from you," he said carefully. "I don't want to hurt anyone." His voice was steady, though his mind raced. The patrol tensed again, but the princess raised her hand, signaling them to hold. She glanced at Ethan with a mixture of fear and fascination, her tears still glistening. The moment stretched, fragile and delicate, as two beings from entirely different worlds tried to understand each other. Ethan realized that he could not rely on brute force or quick thinking alone. He needed empathy, patience, and understanding, the very traits that had defined humanity's greatest achievements. Slowly, he began to move forward, keeping his hands visible. The princess stepped back slightly, as if unsure whether to trust him. Ethan noticed the subtle movements of her guards, their eyes flicking between her and him. He had a feeling that any sudden move could escalate into conflict. He decided to speak gently, hoping to convey his intentions. "I crashed. I need help. I don't want to fight." Her guards exchanged uncertain glances, but she held up her hand, asserting her authority. It was a bold move, one that Ethan knew could have dangerous consequences if they refused to obey her. Yet it showed her courage and her willingness to trust a human, something that he had never expected to see on this alien world. As Ethan followed her into the glowing forest, he took in the sights around him. The trees shimmered with translucent leaves, and strange creatures with delicate wings flitted between the branches. The ground was soft, almost alive, pulsing slightly beneath his feet. He realized that this planet was not just beautiful, it was sentient in some way, a living ecosystem that responded to every movement and sound. The princess led him carefully, her presence calm yet commanding. Ethan could see the tension in her posture, the way she measured each step. She was clearly trained to navigate her world, to survive in ways he could not yet understand. Yet despite her cautiousness, there was a softness to her movements, a grace that suggested compassion and curiosity. After some time, they reached a small clearing where a crystalline pool of water reflected the lavender sky. The princess paused and gestured for him to sit. He complied, still wary but trusting her in a way he had never trusted an alien before. She sat across from him, her eyes fixed on his face. "I want to know," she said quietly, "why humans come to stars." Her question was simple, but it carried the weight of genuine curiosity. Ethan realized that this was more than a casual inquiry. She was trying to understand humanity itself. He thought for a moment before answering. "Exploration," he said finally. "Humans want to know. We want to see what's out there, to understand it, to learn. Sometimes we make mistakes, but we try to grow." She was a leader, a princess, yet she had the courage to show vulnerability, to trust someone so different from herself. For a moment they simply sat there, two beings from distant worlds, connected by curiosity, fear, and a fragile trust. Ethan realized that his mission had changed. He was no longer just an explorer, he had become a bridge between humans and this alien civilization. The princess, despite her tears and uncertainty, had chosen to believe in him. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the crystalline landscape, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. He did not know what dangers lay ahead, what challenges the alien world would throw at him, but he knew one thing. He had found an ally in the most unexpected place, a being whose trust he could not betray. And in her eyes he saw the first spark of hope for both of their worlds. The night on Lithuria was unlike anything Ethan had ever experienced. The sky shimmered with layers of violet and green, and countless stars twinkled far brighter than any he had seen from Earth. The air was warm but carried a soft electric charge that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. Every sound was amplified, the rustle of the glowing leaves, the distant hum of enormous creatures moving in the forest, and the faint whisper of flowing water nearby. Princess Elara led him carefully along a narrow path, stepping lightly over luminous vines and strange flowers that glowed faintly when touched. Ethan tried to keep pace, still shaken from the encounter with the patrol, yet utterly fascinated by everything around him. The princess seemed entirely at home, moving as if the alien terrain was part of her, instinctively avoiding danger in ways he could not yet understand. "Where are we going?" he asked cautiously. "To a safe place," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "I cannot let them take you, not yet. You must be protected." Every step further into the forest made him realize that Lithuria was more alive than any planet he had studied. The glowing plants reacted subtly to their movements, swaying as though acknowledging their presence. Strange creatures with translucent wings darted overhead, their light reflecting in the princess's sapphire eyes. For a moment, the danger of being on an alien planet felt distant, replaced by awe at the beauty and complexity surrounding him. As they walked, Ethan tried to communicate more about himself and humanity. We explore to understand," he said slowly, choosing words carefully. "We do not always succeed, but we try." Humans, we are curious. We want to know. I see it in you. Her words made Ethan's chest tighten. There was something in her voice, a mix of wonder and sorrow, that made him want to protect her in return. He realized that the princess herself was trapped by her people's expectations, trapped by her own sense of duty, and yet capable of seeing beyond fear to truth. After a long walk, they arrived at a hidden valley, partially shielded by jagged cliffs and towering crystal formations. Ilara gestured toward the center, where a small pool of water reflected the lavender sky above. "Here, safe," she said. "No patrols cannot find us." The silence was comforting, broken only by the gentle hum of the forest and the soft ripple of water. He looked at Ilara, noticing the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands trembled slightly as she gazed at the stars. For a moment, they simply sat in quiet companionship, two beings from entirely different worlds, sharing the same space and time. I need to know," Ethan began slowly. "Why are humans so feared here? Why do your people see us as dangerous?" Change is frightening, but sometimes change is good. Sometimes it brings new solutions, new ideas, new hope. "Trust difficult. I do not know if my people can trust." Her words were almost a whisper, yet Ethan could hear the weight behind them. She was a princess, trained to lead, expected to follow rules, and yet here she was, daring to believe in a human. That belief, fragile as it might be, felt like a bridge across the stars. The night passed slowly. Ethan and Ilara spoke of their worlds, of history, of dreams. She listened intently as he described Earth, from its vast oceans to its mountains, its cities and forests, its people and cultures. He spoke honestly about humanity's flaws, its mistakes, and its resilience. In turn, she told him about Lithuria, its crystalline cities, its advanced technology, the deep connection her people had with their planet, and the strict rules imposed by the ruling council. Through their conversation, Ethan realized that Ilara was more than a princess. She was a thinker, a leader, and someone who questioned her world in ways few others dared. Her compassion and curiosity were rare traits among her people, yet they shone brightly in her every word and gesture. As the first light of Lithuria's twin suns began to rise, casting long shadows across the valley, Ethan felt a sense of calm he had not known since the crash. He was still far from safety, still in an alien world, but for the first time he felt understood. The princess had not judged him, had not assumed he was dangerous, had simply listened, and in doing so had shown a strength greater than any weapon. Suddenly the calm was broken. A distant rumble echoed through the valley, and Ethan instinctively rose to his feet. Ilara's eyes widened, and she stepped closer to him, placing a hand lightly on his arm. Patrol's coming," she whispered. "We must hide." Ethan noticed how effortlessly she moved, how intimately she knew the terrain, and how careful she was to avoid making any sound. They reached a small cave hidden behind a waterfall of shimmering liquid light. Ilara gestured for him to enter first. "Here, safe for now," she said. Ethan nodded, grateful for the temporary refuge. Inside, the cave was cool and quiet. The sound of the waterfall muffled any noise from the outside, creating a sense of isolation and safety. Ethan sank to the ground, catching his breath. "You really helped me," he said, his voice a mixture of gratitude and amazement. "I don't think anyone else would have done that." "You are different." Her words were simple, yet they carried weight. She was acknowledging him, recognizing his humanity in a way that few had. Ethan realized that her trust was a gift, fragile and precious, and he vowed silently to honor it. As they rested, Ethan took the opportunity to observe the princess more closely. Her appearance was striking, silver hair, glowing eyes, graceful movements. But it was her demeanor that left the strongest impression. She carried herself with a quiet strength, a combination of curiosity and responsibility, and an underlying sadness that spoke of burdens she did not yet share. Yet despite the weight of her role, she had chosen to help him, to believe in a human when her people saw him as a threat. Hours passed, and the sun rose higher, casting brilliant colors across the alien landscape. Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer just a survivor, he was a participant in something larger, a chance to prove that humans could be more than their reputation, that courage and understanding could bridge worlds. Ilara sat beside him, her eyes scanning the forest outside the cave. "You want to explore more, yes?" she asked, a hint of a smile on her lips. Ethan nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "Yes. But carefully, we must survive first." As they prepared to leave the cave, Ethan realized that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges. Hostile patrols, unknown creatures, and the complexities of an alien civilization. Yet he also knew that with Elara's guidance, and with the human qualities of courage and ingenuity, he had a chance not only to survive, but to forge a bond that could change the course of both their worlds. Together, they stepped into the glowing forest once more, moving cautiously but with a sense of shared purpose. Ethan's heart raced, not with fear, but with the thrill of discovery and the knowledge that this alien princess, with tears in her eyes, had chosen to trust him. For the first time since the crash, he felt that he was not just running away. He was moving forward, toward understanding, toward connection, and toward a destiny that neither of them could yet fully see. The following days on Lithuria were filled with both wonder and tension. Ethan moved cautiously through the alien forests, guided by Princess Elara. Each step revealed new marvels of the planet, trees with translucent trunks that pulsed with light, streams of water that glimmered like liquid crystal, and strange animals that floated or glided effortlessly through the air. Despite the beauty, Ethan could feel the constant presence of danger. Patrols roamed the forests, and the slightest misstep could reveal them. Elara had taken him to places hidden even from most of her people, small sanctuaries where the energy of the planet felt calm and safe. She explained little about the political structure of Lithuria at first, instead focusing on teaching Ethan how to navigate the terrain, how to read the subtle signs of patrols, and how to blend into the alien environment. Ethan learned quickly, impressed by her patience and the way she anticipated his reactions. At night, they would sit beneath the alien sky, talking quietly. Ethan shared stories of Earth, its oceans, mountains, cities, and people. He spoke honestly about human conflicts and mistakes, as well as triumphs and acts of courage. Elara listened with fascination, her eyes wide and reflective in the soft light. She asked questions, sometimes simple, sometimes surprisingly deep, probing not only for facts but for understanding of human nature. One evening, as twin moons rose in the sky casting violet and green light across the valley, Elara spoke more openly about her people. "My counsel, they fear humans. They see only stories, tales of destruction. They do not understand us or you, but I want to learn." Her voice was soft, tinged with frustration. "I see something in you, something they cannot see." "Humans are complicated," he said carefully. "We make mistakes, yes, but we also protect, create, learn. Sometimes we surprise even ourselves. Perhaps you can show my people that not all humans are the same." A few days later, while moving cautiously along a cliffside path, they stumbled upon the ruins of an ancient Lithurian outpost. The crystalline buildings had been abandoned for centuries, their structures partially overtaken by bioluminescent vines and glowing flora. Ethan examined the ruins carefully, noticing strange inscriptions etched into the walls and floors. "These are records," he said, brushing his hand over the symbols. "They may tell history or warnings." The inscriptions depicted a history of Lithuria, battles fought, alliances formed, and technology developed far beyond human understanding. Ethan marveled at the ingenuity and intelligence of her people. As they explored, Ethan noticed something alarming. A section of the ruins seemed tampered with. Certain symbols were erased, replaced with new markings that suggested an unknown group had been there recently. He frowned, realizing that these changes were deliberate. "Someone wants to hide something," he said quietly. Elara's eyes narrowed. "Yes, there is unrest, a faction inside council. They do not want peace. They want war with humans." She spoke cautiously, aware of the danger in admitting this. Ethan felt a chill run through him. The very people who were supposed to protect her planet were plotting against humanity, and now he was caught in the middle. They left the ruins quickly, but the encounter left both of them unsettled. For the first time, Ethan understood that survival on Lithuria was not just about evading patrols or navigating alien terrain. It was about understanding politics, alliances, and hidden threats. Elara, despite her youth, carried a heavy burden. She was not only responsible for her people, but also for preventing a war that could destroy both her civilization and the humans she was beginning to trust. Back in their hidden valley, Ethan shared his observations. "We need more information. We need to understand what they plan before it's too late. If Council learns I trust you, they may act against me and against you." Ethan was amazed by Elara's ability to read the behavior of her people, her knowledge of political nuances, and her skill in using subtle gestures to communicate without revealing their position. They developed a system of silent signals, hand movements and nods that allowed them to navigate dangerous situations together. One evening, they discovered a hidden chamber beneath the palace grounds. From the shadows, they watched as a group of council members met in secret, discussing plans for a weapon capable of mass destruction. The energy readings from the chamber matched the strange storm that had brought Ethan to Lithuria. He realized with growing horror that the same faction might have orchestrated his arrival, intending to provoke a conflict between humans and Lithurians. Ilara's eyes filled with tears, not from fear but from frustration and grief. They want war. They do not care for truth or peace. She turned to Ethan, her expression pleading. You must help me. We must stop them before it is too late. Together we can outsmart them. He marveled at the complexity of their systems, from energy manipulation to defensive mechanisms, and realized that intelligence alone could be as powerful a weapon as any fleet or army. As they worked, the bond between them deepened. Ethan admired Ilara's courage, her compassion, and her willingness to defy tradition in pursuit of justice. Ilara, in turn, respected Ethan's ingenuity, bravery, and unwavering commitment to truth. They shared quiet moments of conversation, laughter, and even brief rest under the glowing alien sky. Each moment reinforced their trust, making them not only allies but friends who could rely on one another in the most dangerous circumstances. However, danger was never far. One night, while returning to their hidden valley, they were spotted by a small patrol. Ethan and Ilara ran, weaving through the glowing forest with adrenaline pumping through their veins. The alien soldiers moved with precision and speed, but Ethan's quick thinking and understanding of the terrain allowed them to escape. Ilara used her abilities to subtly manipulate the environment, creating illusions and obstacles that slowed the patrols. After narrowly escaping, they collapsed near a pool of water, panting and exhausted. Ethan looked at Ilara, her silver hair glinting in the moonlight, her eyes shining with determination and relief. That was close, he said, shaking his head. Yes, too close, she replied softly. We must be more careful. They cannot know our path or our plan. Their mission had become not only one of survival, but of strategy, intelligence, and courage. Over time, Ethan began to notice small shifts in Ilara's demeanor. She was still cautious, still aware of her responsibilities, but she allowed herself brief moments of trust, laughter, and curiosity. She showed him secret places on Lithuria that few outsiders had ever seen, from floating gardens to hidden observatories where the twin suns of Lithuria could be studied in safety. These moments reminded Ethan of the stakes, not just survival, but the beauty and potential of a world worth protecting. One day, as they observed the council from a hidden vantage point, Ilara whispered, They plan to strike soon. If we do not act, war inevitable. Her voice trembled with urgency, but her eyes held fierce determination. Ethan placed a hand on hers, a silent promise. We will stop them together. It was not just survival, not just curiosity or wonder. It was a collaboration of minds, courage, and trust. Humans were capable of ingenuity and adaptability. Lithurians were powerful, disciplined, and deeply connected to their world. Together, they had a chance to prevent catastrophe and prove that understanding and cooperation could triumph over fear and prejudice. As the sun set, casting long, shimmering shadows across the alien forest, Ethan and Ilara prepared for the next phase of their plan. The stakes had never been higher, the dangers never more real, yet neither of them faltered. Together, they were ready to face the faction, reveal the truth, and prove that courage, intelligence, and trust could bridge worlds. Ethan and Ilara spent the following days preparing for what could be the most dangerous phase of their journey. They had gathered enough evidence of the faction's plans to understand the scale of the threat, yet moving against them would be risky. The conspirators were clever and ruthless, with access to advanced technology that could destroy entire cities. Every step required precision, intelligence, and trust. Failure was not an option. Ilara led Ethan to a hidden observatory high in the crystalline cliffs. From this vantage point, they could see the heart of the capital and the council's fortified chambers. The observatory had been abandoned for decades, and its systems were mostly offline, but the view it provided was invaluable. Ethan studied the patrol patterns, the movements of council members, and the locations of security devices. If we move now, he said cautiously, we have a small window, but we must be fast and smart. We must show the council the truth and stop the faction before it is too late. Her voice carried the weight of responsibility, yet there was a determination in her eyes that gave Ethan confidence. Together, they devised a plan. They would infiltrate the hidden base of the faction, gather undeniable proof of their conspiracy, and expose their intentions to the council. The night of the operation was tense. Ethan and Elara moved through the forest, blending with the glowing flora and shadowed terrain. Every sound, every movement was amplified in Ethan's mind. Patrols passed nearby, their movements precise, but the two were careful, using the cover of natural formations and Elara's intimate knowledge of the land to remain unseen. As they approached the entrance to the faction's hidden base, Ethan marveled at the alien architecture. The base was carved into a cliffside, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of the twin moons. Energy barriers glimmered faintly, guarding the entrances. Elara gestured toward a narrow passage that led beneath the main facility. Here, less guarded. We can enter quietly. Ethan crouched behind a large crystalline column, his heart pounding as he observed the meeting. The conspirators spoke in hushed but urgent tones. They discussed the weapon they had developed, capable of unleashing devastating energy across the capital and potentially beyond. The energy readings matched the storm that had brought Ethan to Lithuria. It was clear now that his crash had not been an accident. The faction had orchestrated it, hoping to provoke distrust and ignite a war between humans and Lithurians. Elara's hand tightened on Ethan's arm, her eyes glinting with resolve. We must stop them and show the council before it is too late. Ethan nodded, his mind racing. They had only one chance to act, and it required courage, intelligence, and flawless execution. They moved carefully through the chamber, avoiding detection, until they found the data core that contained all the faction's plans and recordings. Ethan quickly interfaced with the alien technology, his human ingenuity allowing him to bypass security protocols that would have been impossible for a Lithurian unfamiliar with the human approach. Elara watched anxiously, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. Within moments, Ethan had copied the critical files, giving them the evidence they needed. As they prepared to leave, an alarm blared. The faction had detected the intrusion. Guards poured into the chamber, weapons raised. Ethan and Elara exchanged a brief look, a silent understanding passing between them. There was no turning back. They had to fight or flee, and every second counted. Using the knowledge of the base layout and Elara's ability to subtly manipulate the environment, they created obstacles that slowed the guards. Crystalline walls shifted, energy doors closed at precise moments, and illusions distracted the attackers. Ethan improvised strategies on the fly, using both his human adaptability and the alien technology around him. Elara moved with precision, her combat skills refined through training but enhanced by her creativity and intuition. Despite the chaos, their bond allowed them to coordinate perfectly. Every action was synchronized, every decision reinforced by trust. Ethan marveled at how the princess's strength complemented his own. She was not merely a leader or a royal figure. She was a warrior in her own right, courageous, intelligent, and fearless. They reached the final chamber where the faction's leaders confronted them directly. Elara stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Enough, she declared. You will not destroy my people or humans. Your plans end now. You underestimate us, and the truth will stop you. The faction leaders realized they were exposed. Desperation replaced arrogance as they attempted to flee, but Ethan and Elara blocked their path, forcing them into containment fields. The combined efforts of human creativity and Lithurian discipline had succeeded in neutralizing the threat without unnecessary bloodshed. Once the immediate danger was over, Elara contacted the council directly. She presented the evidence, her voice steady and unwavering. Ethan stood beside her, a living testament to the potential of humans. This is the truth, she said. We can choose war or we can choose understanding. Humans are not our enemies, they are our allies if we are wise enough to see it. The faction could no longer deny their intentions, and the planet's leaders had no choice but to accept the alliance with Ethan, and by extension, humanity. Elara's courage and the evidence he had helped obtain had shifted the balance of power, preventing catastrophe and opening the door to peace. In the aftermath, Ethan and Elara took a moment to breathe. The chamber, once a place of tension and danger, now felt quiet and serene. The princess looked at him, her eyes glistening with emotion. You did not have to trust me, but you did, and together we saved many. Without you, none of this would be possible. The following days were spent securing the evidence, ensuring the faction could not regroup, and reinforcing trust between humans and Lithurians. Ethan learned more about Lithurian technology, culture, and governance, while Elara learned more about human ingenuity, adaptability, and resilience. Their bond grew stronger with each passing moment, a blend of friendship, mutual respect, and admiration. As the twin suns rose over the capital, casting shimmering light across the crystalline city, Ethan and Elara stood together on a high balcony overlooking the landscape. "We made a difference," Elara said softly. "Yes," Ethan replied. "And we proved that humans are more than their reputation. Courage and understanding can change the course of worlds." Their journey was far from over. Challenges would come, and the future remained uncertain. But in that moment, he knew that trust, intelligence, and courage had created a bond that could withstand any obstacle. Together, they turned to face the horizon, the alien world before them full of potential and beauty. The factions had been defeated, the Council convinced of humanity's value, and a fragile but promising alliance had been forged. In the eyes of Princess Elara, Ethan saw not just admiration but hope for the future, a future where humans and Lithurians could explore the stars together, learning from one another, protecting one another, and creating a new chapter in the history of both worlds. After the faction's defeat, Lithuria was quiet, but the air was filled with a sense of change. The cities glowed brighter under the twin suns, as if the planet itself sensed the shift. Ethan and Elara moved carefully through the streets of the capital, no longer hiding, yet fully aware that the political landscape had shifted. The council had accepted the evidence, but old prejudices and fears lingered. They knew that true understanding would take time, patience, and proof of trust. Ethan had grown familiar with Lithurian customs during their days of hiding and planning. He had learned how to move silently through their crystalline cities, how to read subtle gestures of respect, and how to use human ingenuity to solve problems in ways Lithurians had not imagined. The more he understood, the more he appreciated their intelligence, their discipline, and the depth of their connection to their planet. But he also saw flaws, rigidity, fear of change, and sometimes a tendency to underestimate beings unlike themselves. Elara walked beside him, her presence calm but strong. The events of the past days had changed her too. Her tears no longer carried fear. They reflected determination, hope, and a cautious optimism. She had risked her reputation and authority to protect not only a human, but also the potential for peace between two worlds. Her courage was evident in the way she moved, spoke, and even in the subtle confidence that now radiated from her. As they reached the council chambers, a ceremony had been arranged. The council members, still wary but respectful, had agreed to meet with Ethan in the presence of the princess. It was a historic moment, the first formal acknowledgement of a human in Lithurian governance. Ethan felt the weight of it, but also a sense of purpose. He was not a politician or a warrior in their terms, but his actions had proven the value of human courage, intelligence, and trust. Elara spoke first. "We face a choice. We can continue to fear and fight, or we can see the truth. Humans, they have shown courage, understanding, and loyalty. They are not enemies. They can be allies." Her voice carried conviction, and the council members listened, some nodding slowly, others frowning in hesitation. Ethan stepped forward, choosing his words carefully. "I come from a world far away. My people, we are curious, sometimes reckless, sometimes flawed, but we are capable of hope, courage, and intelligence. We are not here to conquer, but to learn, to help, and to build connections. Your faction tried to create war. We stopped them. Together, we can prevent destruction, and we can build something better. The faction sought to deceive us, to provoke violence against humans. And yet, we see courage, strategy, and wisdom in both of you. Perhaps there is merit in this alliance." Humans were no longer simply unpredictable outsiders. They were beings capable of great courage, intelligence, and understanding. In the following days, Ethan and Elara worked to formalize the alliance. Humans and Lithurians began sharing knowledge, studying each other's technology, culture, and understanding of the cosmos. Ethan demonstrated how human creativity could solve problems in unexpected ways, while Elara guided him through Lithurian systems, teaching him how to respect and harness their technology responsibly. The combination of human ingenuity and Lithurian discipline proved powerful, showing that cooperation could achieve what neither species could accomplish alone. As they worked, Ethan saw the princess in a new light. She was more than royalty, she was a visionary. Her empathy and courage had not only saved countless lives, but had also created a bridge between worlds. She often paused to ask questions about human history, decisions, and motivations, genuinely seeking to understand the species she had once feared. Ethan realized that through her guidance, he was learning as much as she was, gaining insights into diplomacy, responsibility, and the delicate balance between power and compassion. One afternoon, as they walked along a high terrace overlooking the capital, Ethan spoke quietly. "You've changed things more than you realize, not just for your people, but for the whole galaxy. You've shown that courage and trust can bridge worlds. We can explore, protect, and learn from each other." Ethan marveled at how much could be accomplished when two intelligent species work together rather than in fear or conflict. The bond between Ethan and Elara also grew stronger. They shared quiet moments under the alien sky, discussing dreams, hopes, and the vast possibilities of the universe. Though they were from different worlds, their respect and admiration for each other had created a connection that transcended culture, language, and biology. They laughed together, planned together, and faced challenges together, forging a partnership that would become legendary. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the crystalline forests, Ethan and Elara stood side by side on a balcony overlooking the valley. "We've done something remarkable," Ethan said softly. "Yes," Elara replied, her voice filled with calm satisfaction. "We proved that courage, understanding, and trust can change the course of events. Humans are not only survivors, but partners in a greater future." Lithuria had learned that fear was not the only path, and Elara had shown that even one person's courage could influence the fate of worlds. In the weeks that followed, celebrations were held across the capital. Humans and Lithurians gathered together, sharing knowledge, stories, and discoveries. There was laughter, learning, and collaboration. Ethan and Elara moved among the crowd, observing the fruits of their efforts. The alliance was no longer fragile. It was alive, dynamic, and full of potential. Ethan took a moment to reflect on how far he had come. From a lone pilot caught in a storm to a key figure in an interstellar alliance, he had faced danger, uncertainty, and fear. Yet he had also experienced wonder, trust, and the possibility of change. The alien princess who had once cried out at his flight had become not only a friend and ally, but also a symbol of hope for both their worlds. Elara turned to him, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I am grateful for your courage, your honesty, your presence. Humans, you have shown me the best of what your species can be. We've done this together." In that moment, the fear, the uncertainty, and the tears of the past were replaced by hope. The alliance between their worlds had been forged, not by force or power, but by understanding, intelligence, and the courage to trust one another. Ethan realized that this was the essence of humanity, not the ability to conquer, but the ability to learn, adapt, and create connections that could overcome fear and prejudice. As the night deepened, Ethan and Elara stood in silence, gazing at the horizon. "We have a future," Ethan said softly. "Yes," Elara replied, smiling. "A future for both our peoples and perhaps for many others beyond the stars." The journey had been long and perilous, but it had led them to something far greater: unity, trust, and a new beginning for humanity and Lithuria alike.